Season 3 of House of the Dragon is being marketed as the beginning of the real war. The trailers show the dragons in the air. The marketing asks you to choose a side. The posters tell you that the blood spilled in Season 2 was just a prologue. But that framing is a lie. Because wars do not begin when the first dragon fire touches a castle. They begin when systems fail. Quietly, politely, and with applause, years before a sword is even drawn. Season 3 isn't the start of the conflict. It is the moment the show stops protecting you from the truth. The truth is uncomfortable. It means the war was never about Rhaenyra's right to rule. It was never about Aegon coronation. It was never about Alytes and Alicent misunderstanding a dying king's wish. It was never about Team Black or Team Green. The war was a product. It was the inevitable mathematical conclusion of a broken machine. Season 3 exists to expose that, and today, we're going to perform the autopsy. Every civil war needs a story. Not a cause, a story. Why? Because stories simplify responsibility. They turn complex, structural collapses into individual dramas. They make us believe that if one person had just made a better choice, the tragedy could have been avoided. Rhaenyra was the chosen heir. Aegon was the firstborn son. The Greens betrayed the realm. These are the arguments that flood your feed. They feel meaningful. They feel moral. But notice what they all have in common. They protect the system. By focusing on who crossed the line first, the audience is distracted from asking why the line existed at all. That is the lie behind the war. The lie says, if one side had just behaved better, the realm would be at peace. But the CineLogic of Westeros, suggests otherwise. Peace was never an option. Peace was just a period where the pressure was building behind the dam. Season 3 is simply when the dam breaks. Most viewers look at Season 2 as a slow burn, a build-up to the real action in Season 3. That is a fundamental misunderstanding of what we just watched. Season 2 wasn't build-up. It was resolution. Not of war, but of denial. By the end of the second season, the illusion of choice had been stripped away. Succession was no longer a debate. It was a battle cry. Legitimacy was no longer about laws. It was about who could maintain the most dragon power. Children had already been transformed from people into political assets. We saw peace talks. We saw Rhaenyra and Alytes meeting in September. We saw the last gasp of diplomacy. But none of those moments had any actual authority. Why? Because authority had already been outsourced to violence. The realm didn't stand on the edge of war in Season 2. It had already stepped over the cliff. Season 2 was just the time it took to hit the ground. Season 3 is the impact. To understand why Season 3 will expose a lie, you have to look at the 3 failures that made this war a mathematical certainty. First, hereditary power without correction. The realm doesn't choose leaders. It inherits them. There is no institutional failsafe. No mechanism to say, the law is unclear, let's hold a vote. When the rules of inheritance contradict the reality of power, the system doesn't adapt. It fractures. Second, dragons as political shortcuts. This is the most critical logic. Dragons are not fantasy pets. They are weapons of mass destruction that collapse diplomacy. In a world without dragons, you have to negotiate. You need the support of the lords. You need consensus. But with a dragon, you don't need a consensus, you need a target. Dragons make violence too efficient. They reward the person who escalates first. Once the dragons are in the air, compromise isn't wisdom, it's suicide. Third, tradition as moral cover. Tradition is just repetition with authority. In House of the Dragon, tradition is used by both sides as a shield for their own survival. The Greens use it to justify Aegon. The Blacks use Viserys' Viserys, word to justify Rhaenyra. But none of them actually care about the tradition. They care about the protection it provides. Season 3 is where that shield shatters, leaving only the raw, naked pursuit of power. The show encourages you to pick a side. The marketing is built on it. But sides are a distraction. Both Team Black and Team Green are guilty of the same logical fallacy. They believe their side is exception to the rule. But Season 3 will make it impossible to stay a fanboy or a fangirl. As the war escalates, the moral justifications will become increasingly absurd. When a city burns or a child is weaponized, it doesn't matter if the person who ordered it had a good reason. The system doesn't care about your reasons. It only cares about the results. In Season 3, you will see your favorite characters do things that are logically consistent with their survival, but morally inconsistent with the story you've built for them. That is when the audience feels betrayed. But you aren't being betrayed by the writers. You're being betrayed by your own need to see one side as right. Here is the core CineLogic thesis. Season 3 does not escalate the war. It exposes what escalation already erased. By the time the new season begins, innocence is no longer plausible. Restraint is no longer rewarded. Intention no longer matters. The system no longer cares why you act, only how effectively you destroy. Violence stops being tragic and starts being procedural. It becomes the new language of the realm. This is the point of no return, not because blood is spilled, but because bloodshed no longer shocks anyone. The lie of Season 1 and 2 was that we can still fix this. Season 3 is the realization that there was never anything to fix. The machine is working exactly as it was designed. It was designed to consume itself. Most viewers will hate this interpretation. They will argue in the comments. They will bring up lore. They will point to specific scenes of Daemon Demon or Aemond to prove who is worse. But that resistance is exactly what the system wants. If you are busy arguing about who is the villain, you aren't looking at the throne that created them. If you are busy defending Rhaenyra's honor, you aren't looking at the thousands of small folk who are about to pay for that honor with their lives. Season 3 removes the comfort of being a fan. It forces you to be an observer of a disaster. It is the end of teamism. When Season 3 finally premieres this summer, the internet will be filled with the same questions. Who is winning? Who is the hero? Who deserved that death? But here at CineLogic, we're going to ask a different question. If the system was designed to produce this war, does it even make sense to blame the people trapped inside it? If the throne is a black hole that consumes everyone who gets near it, why are we still arguing over who gets to sit in the center of the collapse? House of the Dragon isn't a story about a war for a throne. It's a story about how the idea of the throne makes war feel reasonable. Season 3 is just where the mask falls off. I want to hear your logic in the comments. Not your loyalty, your logic. If the war was inevitable, who is actually the villain? The person who started it, or the system that gave them the match? I want your answer, because the answer defines how you watch the rest of the series. If you enjoy breakdowns that follow the data, not the drama, this is what we do. Subscribe to CineLogic if you want analysis that doesn't protect your favorite characters. We explain why they never had a chance.